Welcome back, everyone, to Inside Texas Baseball. I'm your host, Evan Beath, of course, joined by Nash Talks Texas on a St. Patty's Day weekend. You can see that on his shirt. Beautiful Texas jersey right there. And a beautiful weekend for Texas, maybe not weather-wise in Starkville, Mississippi, where the Saturday game was rained out, but a 3-0 sweep over the Mississippi State Bulldogs for Texas Longhorns. Really great series overall. 2 7-inning games, a lot of close battles. Nash, a great win for Texas for the weekend, no matter what. But what really stood out to you, and what were your first takeaways that you thought from this weekend?
I mean, my first takeaways are how hard this team is able to fight, and really that's going to pay dividends, later on in the year. Uh, this is not a team that is just going to roll over and die. If they get down behind in the game, just going to keep on chipping away. They're going to fight. They're going to battle to the very end. And you look at the game the series versus Mississippi State. I believe every single one of those games we got down at a certain point where the tying run for Mississippi State in the last inning was up at bat. So It's to the point where, I mean, being in a stadium like that, and I get, the fans may have been impacted with the weather, and their ability to travel to the games, but still, to have that level of environment and to be able to consistently fight and walk away with a sweep in the SEC on the road, that is not something that's easy to do.
Yeah, and this is the first time that a team with a lot of new faces, from freshmen to transfers like Jared Spencer from a small program, really had to play somewhere hostile. Not they played some road games. They've been in Vegas, but a true place where they were not the favorite team there and the most popular team. And I think what really stood out to me personally was kind of the different ways that Texas could win, showing a little bit of versatility in how they were able to find win conditions. Friday's game, the only 9-inning game of all this, Jared Spencer didn't have his best performance. It might have been one of his worst performances as a Longhorn. He gave up 5 earned in 5.2 innings, 8 hits, a walk. The command was actually not the problem here. It's just the bats were getting to him. But Texas, against a true Friday starter from the SEC, puts up 4 earned runs in the first 6 innings. And then that 7th inning, which we've talked about so many times on this podcast, that first relief pitcher getting to that player has been such a big key for the Texas. So Chase Hungate from Mississippi State comes in, and it just bombs away. The Casey Borba home run makes it 5 runs in the inning. And suddenly Texas is up, and they barely secure the win on Saturday. It's a little bit scary in the 9th inning, but yeah, the Longhorns just found different ways to do it, whether it would be good pitching on the Sunday games or just explosive bats on Saturday, that really helped Texas, show that they're a true SEC competitor, not just a team from the Big 12 that's being hurdled in.
Yeah, this is a very deep lineup. You look at just the 2, 3, and 4 hole of Texas. Those are our best hitters on the lineup. They went 1 for 30. That is literally a 0.33 batting average. Like forget sub 100, sub 50, right? Like this is, and to be able to win, and not just win, but also win with some power. Like you mentioned the Casey Borba home run. Hell, he had a home run robbed from him in the last game that would have made it just a little bit more comfortable at the end. But you also look at Rylan Galvan, who's been hitting the heck out of the ball. Max Blue, the one hit that we got out of the 2, 3, 4 hole, that was probably one of the biggest hits of the weekend so far. You also even look at, we've talked about how, maybe a little bit of champagne problems for Jim Schlossnagle, and this is kind of proven how champagne it is. Well, how are you going to decide between Tommy Farmer and Easton Winfield now, right?
Like, at this point,
you go, okay, well, yeah, I want Easton Winfield's bat in the lineup, but like, you want to take that glove out of left field? It's hard to do that. And it's just, this is a very deep lineup. It's a roster that we're going to have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Galvan, because that was easily the first person I wanted to bring up. Just a fantastic weekend for him. Another pair of home runs in a series. Hit 5 for 10 with 3 extra base hits. If you'd asked me at the start of the year that after the first SEC series, who would be the team's highest OPS hitter, just the best raw numbers hitter, Rylan Galvan would have been maybe my 6th guess. He's been a good catcher for this team, but he's turning into a great player for Texas. And right now, by statistics, the best hitter on the team. I'm not sure how long that will stay, and a lot of that comes from some lineup security for him. But it's true, this is a 10-deep lineup. Farmer didn't have the best offensive series, but a game-winning play out there in left field, which having that kind of a glove in left field of all places is just such a premium for Texas. The defense was really good this weekend, which was something I was concerned about earlier in the year, that the errors kind of from Rodriguez at third base and at different points in the infield were a problem, really. But Farmer looks great. Ballou had an outfield assist. It just felt like a really complete win from a team that didn't get a complete game or even complete 3 games from probably the three best players on the team, which is so important for the future of this team.
Yeah, I mean, you point out that outfield assist. I mean, I think that is one of the plays that kind of can almost epitomize this team in one play.
Mhm.
They may make an error, right? But they're not going to just duck their heads and cower out because we made the error and now we're going to jog and we're going to no. What happens when they make an error? Immediately, Kimball Schuessler and Max Ballou, they bust their ass to go get to the ball, and Max Ballou just fires an absolute missile in that if he doesn't make a perfect throw, the guy's safe, right?
Yep.
And there has to be no hesitation on all these things, and it's just you can't give up, right? You can't the mentality of giving up cannot exist in your mind, and we see that with this team. They don't give up ever. You also look, I mean, Max Blue probably had a forgettable weekend in the outfield, and
Yep.
I'll say this too: a lot of people were probably getting a little bit too hard at him on Twitter. I think that a lot of his issues that you have from, if you watched him, it was a lot of it's some of the stuff that you even saw from Tommy Farmer, just bad angles to the wall. Not necessarily bad in the sense that they're playing bad, but they're just not familiar with the ballpark, and the angle wasn't a
Mhm.
perfect angle. I mean, this is their first time ever going to Mississippi State. They had to hunker down an entire all of Saturday inside of a inside of indoor practice dome. So, I mean,
Yep.
it's hard to really get on to these guys and say, hey, you should have been better. But you would like to see a little bit more fluidness in the inside the dish.
Of course. And one thing that maybe fans who aren't as familiar with the baseball team are listening on, who just aren't as familiar with the sport in general, is we always talk about this SEC superiority in every sport. Basketball had 14 teams just make the tournament. SEC football is the pinnacle of college sports, but those two sports, especially, those are all played on the same field, literally. The basketball courts are the same dimensions. Football stadiums are all the same dimensions. The crowd plays a factor, but baseball is the only sport where it's just better to have the continuity of playing in a place because you'll know how to play there. For some of these guys, they just don't know the stadiums that they're going into, and that may be a detriment for Texas compared to players that have been at LSU for 4 years or Tennessee. We'll talk about LSU later, but it's just going to be a growing pain that's going to have to come out of this Longhorn lineup. And I think in general, we're pretty confident as a duo about this outfield and their defensive ceiling, at least with Gasparino and Farmer out there. And you mentioned Easton Winfield, who's another one of those outfielders who's really the 10th bat in this order, but he's hitting 400 in his last 5 games. He's banging on the door, begging to get this playing time. But how can you give it to him when everyone else in this lineup is playing so well? I don't know. Schlossnagle's, like you said, champagne problems and embarrassment of riches. 10 guys truly deep in this order that can all make an impact. Casey Borba, who was seen as the 10th man coming into the season, amazing weekend again. How could you take him out of the lineup after what he's done the last 2 weeks? So the Longhorns really have a lot going on. That's also without Cole Chamberlain getting any swings in. Jaquay Stewart, who's he's not really played that much, but had a good series last weekend when he got against Santa Clara. So Texas, a lot of good hitters on the team, and Kimball Schuessler is something you can add to that. But I definitely want to transition over to the pitching here, Nash, because this was definitely a weekend where we got the feeling of, hey, who are the core guys? Who are the players that are going to be the starting pitchers that you're going to see often, but also true closers and true bullpen arms? Whose role or whose performance really stood out to you this weekend?
One guy that really stood out to me was Max Grubbs. We've seen him carry a lot of innings so far. He's pitched the third most innings in the on the team, and he went 3.1 innings, carried the team to the end of the game. I believe picked up a save in the process. I'm not sure. Uh, his maturity and his ability to be a steady presence in the bullpen, whether he's going to come out into a closing role or whether he's going to come out with bases loaded in the first inning. I mean, this is a guy that's going to be able to. He's going to pick up a lot of high leverage innings for Texas, and if we look back and we say, hey, you know what, Texas earned a hosting spot in the regional, or Texas earned a hosting spot in the super regional, it's likely going to be because of a lot of great appearances from Max Groves.
Mhm. Agreed. And I think what stood out to me the most is you kind of box score watch this weekend. You see, hey, Dylan Ferlandis had 2 saves in the first 2 games. How did that happen? And obviously, the idea on Fridays is Spencer into Duplantier. That's how you'd love to do it. You can get 6 from Spencer, 3 from Duplantier, have that be 3-4 runs. This lineup can get you the rest of that win. But Duplantier lost it a little bit in that last inning, walked a few batters, gave up 0 hits, but 2 runs were scored for him. Ferlandis faced 2 batters, gave up a double, but then got that last out, and that's high leverage, and the crowd is completely on Mississippi State's side. true freshman on the road. I mean, just guts from him to get that last guy to ground out, and a great end to that first game. And then game two, you got a good 4 innings from Luke Harrison. Riojas got 5 and 6. Both of them pitched very well. And then Volantis got a true save. And it felt like, if it wasn't a 7 inning game, probably could have gone 8 or 9. Gave up a few hits, but still a good game from him. And he'd been a Sunday starter last weekend. That was the assumed idea, was that he would be the long-term Sunday starter. But Jason Flores has pitched well. He showed this Sunday that, hey, he can be a SEC Sunday starter. So if Volantis is going to play this kind of like stopper role or come in when we need a big arm and a big lefty gun to throw a guy out and get some leverage in the game, that's fine with me, because this bullpen could use a lefty and maybe could use another lefty, which we can maybe get into a little bit. I just love what Volantis did this week, and I love that they're giving him the shot as a true freshman to say, hey, we want to see you compete. We know you can compete at this level.
I mean, if you look at it, he's almost like a left-handed version of just Max Groves. Like, it's not bad to have a lefty and a righty version of the same type of pitcher. One thing that really kind of stands out to me too is the amount of starts that we've had. We have 6 different pitchers that have already started in games this week, this year so far. And when you go into a regional type mindset, or even if say we progress further down the road and we make to Omaha, which is just the same format as original, just with better teams. Man, that the ability to have that many starting pitchers, that's a luxury. That's not just a benefit. And we haven't even talked about guys like Max Grubbs potentially starting, because that's where you start getting into a conversation of, in the end of the season, like, hey, do we have Max Grubbs pick up a game if we get in trouble or something like that? But even then, we probably already used him. But that's a conversation for another time. But the point is about the depth of the ability that we can go, hey, you know what? There's some good guys that we can potentially trust to start. And in the case of a Jason Flores, a Drew Rarick, and then also a Dylan Volantis, those 3 guys are all freshmen, right? Mm-hmm. And like, to have 3 freshmen that are potential, hey, we might be able to use these guys in the SEC to start SEC ball games. Man, these are all very high prize recruits coming to Texas. So I mean, this is the type of stuff that you'd love to see, because it had been a while since we'd seen this kind of almost pitching recruiting come to fruition, almost like since the Augie days. But it looks like those days are right back.
Yeah, and I think some people would have loved to forget about last year's pitching staff, and it feels like a lifetime ago. But that staff had Max Grubbs as a starter with LeBaron Johnson and Ace Whitehead, who's been dealing with an injury. I'm not sure he'll pitch this year, but Grubbs can give you that. Like you said, the freshman give you so much. And what also stands out to me is that they only used 7 pitchers this weekend, and those will be the core 7 guys. It seems like those guys have earned that kind of tier above everyone else, the 3 starters, the main bullpen arms. But there's about 6 or 7 other guys on this team that have pitched important games, not just a midweek against A&M Corpus Christi. They pitched against Oklahoma State. They played in that Louisville game. They fought against Illinois. Players like Cade Bing, who you're going to need another lefty down the line. Obviously, they have 2 lefty starters, but lefties in the bullpen, you can never have enough. It's so important to have guys that can get those, the 3, 4, 5s who are the best hitters on the team that are also lefty swinging out. So Bing being a true bullpen arm would be important to me, in my opinion. But also, like, Rarick is probably going to be the Tuesday starter this week, and maybe for the future. Can he be someone that can work his way into a Sunday start? If, pitchers get injured, that's just what happens in baseball. Arms blow out. So can Rarick be that? Bryce Navari looked great in his about 4 or 5 innings that he's pitched this year. Can we get some of that? Thomas Burns, Grayson Saunier. I think you're going to see that a lot this next weekend, as we'll talk about it a little later. But LSU is going to hit some of our pitchers. It's just going to happen. So are there going to be some guys that can give you 4 batters of really strong pitching that can get you through a tough stretch of that lineup?
Well, one thing too, also, when you look at the weekend, we only used 7 pitchers, but at the same time, it was cut 4 innings short. 2 7-inning games. There's a potential that we have to reach deeper into the bag, and we see a guy like Thomas Burns come out. But honestly, I think that having a guy like Thomas Burns, where it's not like him not pitching against Mississippi State is going to make or break his entire season, right?
Yeah, no way.
I'm fine with him, not having to be used at all this, because this is a guy that the coaching staff has been clear about. Hey, this guy, maybe we get back to starting, because he is a starting pitcher, right? Mm-hmm. He does. He said, that was kind of cool, pitching the closing role, because he's never really kind of done this role of coming in as a late inning guy, but getting him back to starting. I mean, if you add him into the starting rotation, where a healthy Max Grubb or not Max Grubbs, uh, blanking on
Tommy Burns.
Thomas Burns. Yeah, if you go back to a healthy Thomas Burns, man, and you add that to the list of potential starters, this team gets only deeper. And then I mean, you look at, I know he didn't start off great, and some fans are probably gonna scoff at this name, but again, Will Mercer, when he gets back into the lineup in a few
Mhm.
weeks from now, man, that is going to be a huge arm for Texas because I maintain that coaches know baseball, and when coaches
Yeah.
we're talking as good, as good as they were about Will Mercer. Like when you hear, Jim Schlossnagle already, he's still excited about getting Will Mercer back. Obviously, he's shown them some really good stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's just someone that you're always going to want to have. Like I made that point about the lefties that Mercer will be fine. Maybe this early season things was just the spooks. He was a little bit in over his head what he could do and couldn't do. And I think it's been good that Schlossnagle's given him this break to say like, hey, just put in work behind the scenes. We're not expecting you to do anything. We're redshirting you for 3 weeks because they will need him. It's not like we said. It's not going to be that every game. It's going to be a cut to innings short. B Mississippi State a good team, but they don't have the bats that LSU or Tennessee has, and you're going to have to face Florida's as well later in the season. So a lot is riding on what this bullpen can be, but I think we got a really good look this weekend about at least the core guys and how good they can be. And we didn't even mention Ruki Riojas because quiet, amazing 2 innings from him. I think maybe 2 batters got on from that whole time. So great job from him. And just dependability was important for this team. And as we talk about dependability, Connor, we're going to send it over to Laura Baker, who's queen of dependability in Austin.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
As always, we have LC giving the beautiful voice to a great ad read. Thank you, Laura Baker, for sponsoring the show. As we move on to the future of this Texas baseball team, we're not going to ignore you, UTSA, because obviously there's a big idea coming this weekend. But UTSA is 16-6 on this year, Nash. They're a good baseball team.
A good baseball team.
League games are the ones that really get to you at this point of the year when you're really focusing on how good your own opponents are going to be on the weekend. But UTSA is strung together some good wins. They beat Texas A&M already in a midweek, which who knows how important that is these days. But yeah, it's going to be a Tuesday game tomorrow. We assume that Rarick will be the one to go on the mound, but this could be anyone starting out pitching here. How important are these games in the middle of the week to get you tuned up for what everyone can see on the screen now, a match against the number 2 team in the nation?
I mean, if you look at the midweek games that we have, right? Sam Houston's a 4-15, right? They're probably that's probably a safe to say easy win, right? Okay, Texas State 8-11. I would say easy win, but you know what? That's Texas State. We don't necessarily consider them a rival, but they consider us a rival when we play them twice. So they're going to always be up to play Texas, right? That if you've ever watched Texas baseball, you know that. Like they're going to be excited. Houston Christian, they're 12-6. They're not a bad team, right? UT RGV, they're 14-3. They're not a bad team. Prairie View A&M, probably another one, 6-15, right? And then you got Lamar, who's 15-7, and this is a group of midweek games that's just not. You don't just write it off, right? Especially a team like UTSA. UTSA is probably going to be pushing for a regional spot, and this is definitely a win, right? If they are able to get a win against Texas, especially a team that Texas is looking like, a 2025 Texas might be, a win versus Texas would go a long ways, and twice on Sunday on for their resume. So I mean, they're going to be up to play Texas. So I think that one, I'm really excited that we have this hard of a midweek schedule. One, because I think it's just it keeps our guys focused, right? And then two, I mean, we are going to be battle hardened, right? It's not guys like Drew Rarick, right? Guys that get a lot of innings on the guys that get a lot of run time in the midweek games on Tuesdays. Well, when you look back at their stats and you say, "Oh, well, they were just Tuesday games," you can't just do that, right? These are some good teams that they're going to have to play. So if Drew Rarick has a low ERA, he's earned that, right?
Yeah.
And this is a potential trap game for Texas because I mean, right now looking at this spot, right, it's very easy to go and say, "Hey, you know what? Texas could wind up 0-4 out of the stretch if we look ahead."
Yeah. And I mean, this UTSA game is sandwiched in probably the most important 6 games of the season. So you run that down with a team that they tear the cover off the ball. Some of these scores that they put on, they lose, but it's 15-13. So in favor of Texas that you're facing the Tuesday starter of a team that's poor at pitching. But Rare's facing real hitters. These are not guys that just are going to keel over and try to hit the ball and slap it into the outfield. These are guys that are going to try to take you deep, and Longhorns will have to be worried about that. But of course, the big number 2 right there by LSU's name is what everyone in Austin's thinking about. Unfortunately for us students and for me as well, it's our spring break. So we're not even going to have student fans here. It's the end of our spring break for this games, but LSU is coming to town. What an awesome event it's going to be in Austin, and just a great crowd. I assume the dish is going to be packed to the max for this kind of game. Yeah, Yard's going to be giving some cheers, but LSU is a team with an unbelievable amount of depth. I think I want to start with the pitching for a squad like this because they've just got fireballers and some real MLB level players. Cade Anderson, their Friday starter, is a sophomore. He's probably going to be a first-round pick in the MLB draft this year, if not a second-round pick. He's been amazing this year. I think a tune of a 2.5 ERA at this point. But that's not even starting to scratch the surface amount of MLB level players on the staff. What about LSU really separates them from maybe the Big 12 teams of the past that Texas has played, and as you're looking at this team this year?
I mean, a lot of the depth, like their pitching, they have some really good pitchers. There was one pitcher that we were kind of in contention for going for in the portal. Trying to think of the guy's name off the top of my head. I can't. No, there was another one. He's been a starter for them, but Anthony Ianson. He's had some good innings for them. But it's a very similar team to Texas. They're deep, right? And I think that it was really I was watching the LSU series. This is a really good team. And then they're playing Missouri. And, I think back to the comments that I had against Missouri last week. And Missouri's hanging in there right in every single game.
Give them some games.
And so I'm like, man, there really are no games off in the SEC, right? And
No.
you look at, yes, there is like the LSUs, right? But Mississippi State is not a bad team. And it's not a far jump up to get to an LSU level squad, but the depth that you had, like it's going to be a lot like playing Texas, right? 1 through 9, all guys are capable of hitting a home run. They had one of their guys just hit their first home run this year. Texas has a few of those guys left on the roster, but still, this is just one of those series that, especially like just for LSU and Texas, these are literally 2 mammoths colliding. This is like, if there were 2 giants in the sport, these are the 2 giants, Texas and LSU. And there's honestly no other team that could put a logical argument up to saying, hey, we're more prestigious and we're a better baseball school than either of those schools. These 2 schools can argue about it and bicker about it all day long, and they can just sit there and, LSU can sit there and say we won more national championships, and we can say we've been to Omaha more times, right? But at the end of the day, there's no other schools that can, tout the level of success that we have as long as LSU.
Yeah, and I've seen your Twitter today talking all over. Maybe some USC fans disagreed, but yeah, it is the cream of the crop when it comes to just overall success of programs in this sport. It's your Alabama, Ohio State, if that were to be the matchup for football. And yeah, when you look at this LSU lineup, their first 8 batters, their top 8 guys, and just overall at bats, 6 of them have over 1,000 OPS. Just hitter after hitter after hitter. This is probably the best infield in the nation, at least on the right side of the infield with Jones and Dickinson, who are 2 amazing players. Derek Curiel, true freshman, is their best hitter. He was named the best true freshman of the year by D1 Baseball to start the year. This kid's a stud. He's going to be a major leaguer at some point in the year or at some point in his career. And I can say that about probably 8 of the guys in their lineup right now. They use the portal really effectively. They always have since the start of that being a thing. But LSU, if not for one kind of random loss in the start of the year would probably be the number one team in the nation. Tennessee obviously is great. Yeah, I lost to Omaha it was, but yeah, the Longhorns have a lot to do this weekend. But what would you say are 2 or 3 keys to success for Texas as they're heading into these games?
I mean, it's just it's going to sound elementary, but just really, I think the best thing is to have a solid approach, right? To have a consistent approach. You're going to get frustrated when you play a team like LSU, but you need to have a consistent approach. And the biggest thing to me is finishing off games. LSU is, to me, I think they are a very, very dangerous team because there's been quite a few games, namely off the top of my head, Kansas State and Nebraska, that they were actually down to and like looking like hey, here's a loss coming. And both times, anytime LSU's ever been put, you think you got them down on the tarp. No, they're going to keep on fighting. They're not going. You got to smother this team, and
Yeah.
for Texas to walk away with either 2 or 3 victories, it's going to take one hell of a fight. And I think that this is just one of those teams that you cannot let up on. You got to. It's got to be the gas pedal, all 9 innings.
100% agree. And I think we were talking about this kind of in our pre-show, just talking off air, but just winning one of these games for a team can be so important for their resume and so important for even confidence. If every game's close, but you're only coming out with one, how much of that is a loss overall in every sport, in every kind of competition, maybe apart from college basketball. There's a big difference between like the top 2, 3 teams and the 8 through 10. We saw that in college football this year with teams like Ohio State and even Texas at times. But there's just such a difference once you get to that really small number. And LSU is the superior team at the moment, but a 2 out of 3 win would just be an absurd win for the school and for the program that Texas has. For Jim Slauson able to prove everyone kind of right about what he's done so far here in Austin. For me, I think the obvious thing that needs to happen is these freshmen need to be able to play to the level they've been playing this year in general. Adrian Rodriguez has never seen what LSU is going to bring out as pitching wise. Neither have any of the young guys really, even Borba or Farmer, but they've at least been in Austin for this time. Drew Rarick, if he's going to get a chance to pitch over the weekend, but Flores and Volantis, they're going to have to be able to step up and not get too scared of what's going to show up at the plate because these are guys that are going to play in the MLB. And that's also the idea for Texas's pitchers. But, some of these guys are going to be playing in the MLB by 2027. Maybe Texas doesn't have that right now on their pitching staff. So the Longhorns are going to need these young pitchers to really step up and show that they can handle 3 innings of true SEC play and true, Omaha level offense that LSU is going to provide.
And also, I mean, you talk about so LSU, they have their MLB players. Yeah. And that's where we need our guys like, hey, Max Blue, Jalen Flores. This is, the time to step because also, too, these guys are playing for a lot more than just a win or some RPI, right? Games like this, if Jalen Flores goes out there and hits 500 on the weekend, MLB draft scouts are going to put a nice little note about that on their so there's a little bit of extra motivation for these guys because it's like, hey, this is time to get me, maybe I earn a couple $100,000 more, maybe, whatever. Right. But this time this is draft stock boosting time. This is just one of those games that I don't know. This is such a special series that we're getting to watch. It's not many times that you're going to see a team like Texas and LSU, both top 5 level team, right? And I mean, man, like you said, if we're able to get to where we're 19-2 after this, or it wouldn't be it would be 20-2 because the UTSA. If we won UTSA, if we get to where we go 2-1 on or 3-1 on the weekend, and we're sitting there at 20-2, this would have to be one of the best feeling starts in not just since insert year in all of Texas history. This is that really good stuff that we're going to see right now.
Yeah, and some uncomfortable discussions maybe what happened for some other people around Texas, but that really does wrap us into an important thing that we need to talk about, which is just the rankings, which we're finally recording late enough to have every single ranking out. So you're welcome, everyone. But some jumps here that you're seeing, which made sense, a lot of thinning out in that average top 10 area. Baseball America has Texas as a top 5 team, starting 9 points higher than the preseason. They've jumped 11 spots since the preseason for D1 Baseball. D1 Baseball's finally got them as a top 10 team, which every other site had before this. So say what you want about that. But you're seeing a general consistent area of about that 6 to 8 spot for Texas here. Nash, where do you think this team is just truly power rated wise, not even just where you'd rank them? How good is this Texas team?
There's some really good teams out there, but I would definitely say it's a top 8 team power rank. Like this is, if you were to say, hey, we got to decide a field of 64 right now today, Texas would undoubtedly be a top 8 national seed. Hey, if they win a regional, they're hosting a super regional.
100%.
And I mean, it's awesome to say those types of things, but too, like another thing, looking at this again, man, what perfect game. What were they smoking in the preseason, Ben? Because they seem
They
to
do
they
something
seem
we
to have
did.
been on to something right there, man. But yeah, it's just just looking at these rankings, it's just looking back at where we were a year ago, right? And not even just a year ago, 6 months ago, even after
Yeah.
we'd hired Jim Schlossnagle, and the questions of are they going to immediately get response in 2025, right? So far, we have. We got a tough SEC schedule coming up, and it's going to be really hard to hold on to. Like, this is the fun part of this now is, can we hold on to this? We've earned the ability to say, hey, we're a top 6, we're a top 8 team right now, and in mid March. To say that in late April, that means we've won some really, really important games. And if we, win some really important games, so, win some series, right? Win a series versus LSU, win a series versus Georgia, you're going to see Texas. If we win this LSU series, we're going to be in the top 5 of every single one of these polls.
No question.
Undoubtedly.
Well, and just to talk about that difference from last year, this time last year just came off a Washington series loss. They'd already had 8 losses on the year. Now, I'd say there's a pretty obvious tier break.
Which
that's
cost us
Tennessee.
the hosting spot.
Oh yeah, that was the series that cost us. And I think right now Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida State seem to be a little bit separated from a lot of these teams. But after that, pick your poison of the next 3 teams you won in Omaha. I agree with you. I put the Longhorns against anyone in that general area of teams. And like you said, just Texas didn't even have the benefit of the doubt. They had probably a little bit of a Schlossnagle bump from perfect game, but D1 baseball put them at number 19 with probably a top 10 coach showed that, hey, they weren't confident about this team as a whole and the talent that was on this roster. But when players like Ethan Mendoza and Adrian Rodriguez are giving you what you've gotten so far, it's hard to think of them not as a potential Omaha squad. So Longhorns in an amazing spot here coming into an important week. Got to get through UTSA first. Not going to be an easy game, but really what everyone's eyes are on is this LSU series on the weekend. Do you have any last words for us here, Nash, as we wrap it up?
No, just to reiterate what you said. We had to earn the ranking that we have right here. Baseball America 14-5, D1 baseball 19-8, National College Baseball Writers Association 17-9, the coaches poll 13-7, College Baseball Central 9-7. 19-7. You even go and you look at one of my great friends, one of the best traditions in Texas baseball has occupied left field. He's tweeted about it multiple times, and I remember talking with him. It's like, hey, that 15-19 range is where he thought, we deserved to be preseason, right? He thought that was the fair ranking. And some of the Texas fans that I talked to, they thought that Perfect Game was smoking some crack, right? With this number set, like you said, that Schlossnagle bump. Maybe that was too much, but man, again, just how proud I am that this team has earned everything that they've gotten so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just been a great start to the season so far. And even if an LSU series doesn't go quite the way that you'd want as a fan.
Win one game. Just win one game at the very least. If we go 2-2, I'm still happy. I'm happy.
And if that's how the week goes, you can still chalk that up as a success and a team that can make a real run late in the season. So
yes.
Texas baseball, if you're not on the bandwagon now, it's time to jump onto the ship, or maybe wait until after LSU and then you get on the ship. Either way, now's a great time to start really getting invested and come out to the stadium this weekend. So that's going to be all from us here at Inside Texas. Another great show here with Nash, a beautiful green shirt going on. And thank you so much to Connor behind the scenes, Laura Baker for our sponsors. And of course, Inside Texas is your go-to place for anything Texas sports related, football season recruiting, as well as basketball as they've made the tournament. And of course, here with us at baseball. Keep checking out our live shows. Subscribe over on 3 Inside Texas. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome.